Good morning, Malacañang Press Corps and guests. Welcome sa ating regular press briefing. Today we have Assistant Secretary Chris Ablan ng PCOO. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rocky. Good morning, Malacañang Press Corps. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. I am pitching in for spokesman Ernie Abella and Assistant Secretary Marie Banaag this morning. All right, let's start. As part of the series of briefings on federalism, we are pleased to have today Mr. Lito Monico Lorenzana. Mr. Lorenzana is the president of the Centrist Democracy Political Institute, or CDPI, a political nonprofit organization in partnership with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Philippines, a German political foundation which promotes political education initiatives worldwide. He is the chairperson of the Centrist Democratic Party of the Philippines, or CDP. He was the chairman of the 2006 Advocacy Commission and Secretary General of the 2005 Consultative Commission tasked to revise the 1987 Philippine Constitution. He has served under 4 Philippine presidents in various capacities as a member of the cabinet and several commissions. He has served, ladies and gentlemen of the Malacañang Press Corps, let us all give a warm welcome to Mr. Lito Lorenzana. Sir.
Thank you very much, Asa Chris, Ms. Rocky. I was warned by Ms. Rocky to speak to you in Taglish. Okay? But you see, I am from Davao. I am a Bisaya. And ang aming sa Davao, matitigas ang aming dela. So I will speak, therefore, in Taglish and maybe a little French. Okay? So I would like to thank Yusek Asik, Asik Chris, and to thank the presidential spokesperson, Secretary Ernie Abella, for this opportunity to present to the Malacañang Press Corps, to you people, our position on federal parliamentary. First, we'd like to introduce ourselves better. We are members of the National Political Party, the Centrist Democratic Political Party, CDPI, that just celebrated our first anniversary the other day, September 12. We started in Mindanao, particularly Davao, as a motley group of several NGOs and political movements decades back that morphed into what we are now. In the political spectrum, we situate ourselves in the broad center, from left of center to a little bit to the right. Our ideological profile is encapsulated in our core value, human dignity, and the enhancement thereof. We were originally called Christian Democrats. We later dropped the appellation Christian, substituting it for centrists in order to attract Muslims and the political adherents of other faiths, and even atheists. Our pedigree goes a long way back to the 1960s. I don't think any of you were born then. During the time of Raul Manglapus, a few of us were recruited by him when we were still in college, mostly from the Ateneo. This, therefore, is also my confession, and I suspect many of you already know that I am over 30 years old. And I intend to ride herd over our political party, the CDP, for at least the next 30 or 40 years until we assume political power, which we hope. Now, you have a copy of my talk, and with it, we produced a PowerPoint presentation to stress some important facts. You know, over countless speaking engagements I had, I find it colorful images accompanying narratives are much better retained than just the auditory portion of a speech. So, to the main speech, President Digong, or President Rodrigo Duterte, the first Mindanaoan president, wrote on federalism as his campaign slogan, although its impetus was the demand for the Mindanaonons to extricate themselves from the political and economic dominance by the center. This is also true for the Visayas, the Bisaya, the Bicolanos, and even the Tagalogs, provinces, islands, and areas in the periphery of the epicenter of political universe based in Metro Manila. The Muslim and Christian brothers have never been as closer today to fulfilling this decades-long dream of the abolition of the unitary system of government, a systemic anomaly perverting the concepts of democratic good governance. After almost 100 years from the American Commonwealth to the present, thanks to this president we have now, we are at the cusp of achieving this change. The popularity of federal parliamentary system rose almost single-handedly to the sheer personality of a Mindanaonon, who in his 2 decades as a local government executive understood and suffered through the imbalances and discrepancies within the unitary system. The voters took him and these concepts on faith. But for the shift to federal parliamentary to succeed, the beneficiary, the people, needs to know what's in it for them before they buy into it. After an aberrant unitary government practiced over a century, long embraced values of political patronage have permeated the body politic. This needs to be overhauled and new practices inculcated over time, safeguarded by judicious laws. We have several models of federalism already submitted to Congress. We are presenting to you today a model born out of years of discernment and study. Former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, in 2005, issued Executive Order 453, establishing a 50-man commission to propose revision on the 1987 Constitution. This was headed by Professor Pepe Abueva as chairman and myself as Secretary General. This was submitted to Congress for deliberation. This was archived by Congress. We will not reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So we are presenting the 2005 Constitutional or Consultative Commission documents adopted and updated by our party, the Centrist Democratic Party, the Lakas Party of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, and the Centrist Political Institute, the CDPI. We call it the centrist proposals for short. So the centrist proposals for the revision of the 1987 Constitution. This will be submitted to the 25-man commission to be appointed by President Duterte sometime the next few days or 2 weeks. First, what we have today, what are we? We're a unitary presidential system. The Philippines is a sovereign state governed by a single entity. The central government is supreme, and the administrative division or local government units exercise only powers that the central government has delegated to them. Central government is therefore ultimately the source of power, of course, upon the consent of the governed, we. And central government can choose to delegate, decentralize, and devolve powers, but at the same time can unilaterally revoke or take them back anytime. That is the feature of the unitary or unitary. We also have today a presidential system where the executive branch led by the president serves as head of state and head of government and executes the laws of the land. Such laws are legislated by a bicameral body of a Senate and House of Representatives and interpreted by the judiciary. In theory, although the three branches of government are co-equal, in practice, the president is primus inter pares, and in fact, dominant. And this is the unitary the unitary presidential system. What do we want? And what were we proposing? We are proposing the federal parliamentary system. We want a system, ladies and gentlemen, where power and authority are not centralized, but shared between the federal government and the states. We call this regions, sub-states. This system allows states to develop themselves the way they see fit, based on their culture and specific conditions. Some areas of public life are under the control of federal government, like, for example, security and national defense, money and coinage, diplomacy and foreign affairs. Some are left to the states, education, taxation, franchises, licenses, and permits. And some powers and authority are shared, raising taxes, borrowing money, criminal justice system. And these are all guaranteed in the Constitution. We also want a shift from a presidential to a parliamentary government. Briefly, a parliamentary system is known as party government, as the political parties have ascendancy over personalities. And because of the pivotal role of political parties in parliamentary elections, governance, and public administrations. In our proposal, the centrist proposal, the legislative and the executive are fused. Pinagsasama-sama yan. We fuse them in a unicameral parliament, one body. And the head of government is the prime minister, primordial guy, with his cabinet recruited from among the members of parliament, while the president is the head of state, symbolizing the state, and commander-in-chief in our proposal of all the armed forces, elected also from among the members of parliament, not elected universally. The prime minister or the head of government can be booted out of office through a vote of no confidence, not the process of impeachment. So that is, in short, the federal parliament system which we want. Now, while revising the 1987 Constitution, in the process of revising the Constitution, we have four preconditions and four critical conditions. It's very important. One is a political party reform. We need real parties, not the type we have today or have had in the past several decades. Political parties are primarily formed not only to contest elections and to grab and hold power in government, but they must possess an ideological core aggregating the needs and aspirations of diverse segments of our society, differentiating each from the other to give the people a chance to choose what they want. This reform can best be achieved through the passing of the Political Party Development and Financing Act. We have these laws already in Congress, but have been archived for many, many years because Congress does not want to come up with real political parties. This bill in Congress for several years, House Bill 49, House Bill 403, and 159. You can look that into your websites. What will they do? First, we penalize turncoatism, or the switching of political parties, the balingbings, the political butterflies, etc., etc. Number two, it will enforce transparent mechanisms providing and regulating campaign financing to eliminate graft and corruption and patronage. That's very important. And also corporate and individual contributions, and through state subsidy that will professionalize political parties by supporting their political education and campaign initiatives. So that masking publika, if you are very good, then the party will support you. So you don't have to have the oligarchy support you, di ba? No. Second is to enact a law banning political dynasties as mandated in Article 2, Section 26 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. This will ban the concentration of powers by the dynastic families in the barangay, local, and national positions. If Congress will not again pass an enabling law because 80 to 90% of Congress are members of dynasty, then what should be written in the revised constitution should be banning the dynasty should be self-executory. So Congress doesn't have to do anything with it. The third is the passage of a real, all-encompassing Freedom of Information Act, a bill, to enforce transparency in all transactions of government, preventing the type of monopolies that will emerge. This law will allow public access to information pertaining to official acts, transactions, or decisions, and compel transparency and accountability in public service. The fourth is very important, is initiate electoral reforms that would put in place a system that will not pervert the will of the populace. Any system that adheres to the democratic principles should consider clean and fair elections, not necessarily honest, but clear and fair elections as imperatives. The COMELEC must be reformed to remove all quasi-judicial work and transfer electoral contests and protests to the judiciary. These four conditions have a high probability of passage while we have a president endowed with tremendous political capital and have the political will to act decisively. Now, the more important thing I think which you should concentrate on is the roadmap and timelines. If Congress will seriously start deliberating today in amending the 1987 Constitution, and if the same will be ratified by 2019, the country will then start the process of federalization. By all accounts, this is by far the most feasible timeline on the federalization of the Philippines. Federalism is a journey. It cannot be done in one step, but with several critical stages. We can adjust a constitution or write a constitution, and the next day we are a federal republic. It is also not a one-time panacea to the ills of our society. It is a series of prescriptions that must be taken one after another for it to work. So this is very important. It's the first stage. The first stage is October 17, next month, or today, up to February 2019. The Constitutional Assembly, or CONAS, or Constitutional Convention, will revise the Constitution targeting February 2019 plebiscite, ratifying the new Constitution. With this schedule, the Constituent Assembly or the Constitutional Convention, whatever the case may be, will have exactly 1 year and 4 months, that's 16 months, from today to write and submit the proposed new Constitution to the Filipino people for ratification. The second stage, from May of 2020 to 2025. The first parliamentary elections under the new federal constitution shall be conducted not later than May 2020 to organize the first unicameral parliament under the newly ratified constitution with a term of 5 years up to 2025. Now, the incumbent President Duterte, now in a parliamentary form of government in 2022, shall continue, this is very important, shall continue his dual presidential role as head of state and at the same time as head of government, leading and presiding over the new unicameral parliament. We need him still there up to 2022. Now the third stage is May of 2022, when in the old Constitution he is supposed to step down. The President said he wants to step down. By May 2022, President Duterte steps down as head of state, and a new President elected by Parliament to serve the remaining term of President Duterte. Or, if the people want, then you put that, you provide that in the transitory provisions of the new Constitution that he will still set up to the tier. Okay? This is a choice of the people. The fourth stage, from May 2025 to 2030, the second regular parliamentary elections under the new Constitution is held by 2025, with a 5-year term to 2030. We then have a new Prime Minister and a new President. Now, that is the shift to parliamentary. Mauuna yung immediate shift to parliamentary. But the process of federalization goes on. The creation of autonomous territories leading towards a federal republic. The first stage is also February 2019. Upon the ratification of the Constitution, a body or commission may be created by Parliament to oversee the negotiations setting the parameters for the creation of the 11 autonomous territories. The CDP, the centrist position, calls for 11 autonomous territories because the 12 autonomous territories, the Bangsamoro, will be constituted ahead of the Bangsamoro because of the Bangsamoro Basic Law enacted by Congress previous to the plebiscite. So mauuna sila. So ang cry namin is, ang CDP cry is, what is good for Bangsamoro is good for Bangsa Bisaya, Bangsa Iloco, Bangsa Tagalog. Now, Parliament can then enact, after the negotiations, the new Constitution, the Organic Act of Bangsamoro, and the other autonomous territories once they finish negotiations that are advanced in their negotiations and agreements. Now, the second stage, from May 2020 to 2025, remember, Digong is still a president there. And after that, toward 2028. During this critical period, Parliament shall guide and allow the evolution of provinces and highly urbanized cities from what it is today into autonomous territories first. These local government units shall negotiate from among with one another the establishment of their future federal state based on their geographical location, population, history, language, cultural similarities, considerations of their natural resources and wealth, and the selection of the seat of the state capital. The results of these negotiations shall be incorporated in detail and enacted in an organic law within a year of a petition to be subsequently approved by the constituents of the new formed autonomous territory in a referendum. I think mauna kami doon sa Davao. The 3 Davao provinces, plus Kumbal, because we have more, we are advanced more, then we can negotiate and we will be the first or the second autonomous territory after Bangsamoro. Hopefully. Some of the provinces' cities will be ahead of the pack and some will be laggards. Therefore, the development of a federal republic will not be uniform. All this need and will be guided, will need time and with guidance from Parliament. It is our contention that if 60%, 3/5, of the provinces and highly urbanized cities become autonomous territories with organic acts, and then the Federal Republic of the Philippines is created. By reckoning, this will happen in 2028 or before 2028. But doesn't matter because as autonomous territories, they already operate like federal states. They can raise their own funds, they can raise their own, they can come up with their own resources, they come up with their own taxes and spend for themselves, see? Now, looking into the theoretical aspect of federalism and the models of successful federal governments, in the world, the principles, and this is very important, the principles of self-determination, solidarity, autonomy, subsidiarity, and cooperation between the national and the federal states and among the states themselves are essential to the sustaining a federal republic. It has to be emphasized that it is not federalism when there is a central government imposing on the body politic the territories that will eventually compose a federal state. It is a kind of federalism we aspire for when the people from cities and regions shall negotiate among themselves and arrive at a decision to set up their own federal state. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, federalism is indeed a complex process and may take several years before the country can fully implement it. However, if we do not educate and involve ourselves in the debate now, then we will never learn and be able to help build our beloved nation as immediately as possible. We need most especially to engage the millennials. A lot of people I see here are millennials, including myself, I suppose. We need most especially to engage them, for they have the energy to manifest the positive changes we wish to take place in our history, in our society. And lastly, we need an alert and knowledgeable citizenry that can compel this nation's movement towards this common goal. And in this end, we need massive political education throughout the country. And this can only be achieved when all like-minded political parties and individuals will turn their backs on differences and march forward in a single rhythm, firm in resolution and clear on principles. This roadmap, by the way, the centrist roadmap to federalism is just designed to mitigate the shock to the body politic arising from the purging of traditional political practices to the immediate passage of reform laws now pending in Congress. Furthermore, the critical process of transition to a parliamentary federal republic has to be in place in the revised constitution, so the assurance of its continuity is safeguarded by the Constitution itself, even beyond the term of the current president. To reiterate, the centrist roadmap, our roadmap, simply adapts to the exigencies of real change. Tunay na pagbabago, the rallying slogan of the Digong. Accelerating change where feasible without unnecessarily upsetting institution and government services. Salamat po sa inyong lahat, and we are ready for questions and answers.
Malacañang Press Corps, questions? Question? Laila Salaveria.
Good morning, sir. Sir, you mentioned the possibility of Mr. Duterte extending his term to 2025.
Yes.
So why did you raise that option? And what benefit would we get if we opt for that?
Well, this is not really my option, but you see, the point is that for 40 years, we have only one president who says that we need to shift to federal system of government. We tried out several times during the time of GMA, during the time of ERAP. We all failed, but we have a president with political will. So we thought, why not a few years, provided that that is what we want, okay? That's why we said, we suggest it, so that that can be put in the transitory provision. Sa bagay, it's only ilang years na yan, from 2022 man lang when he is supposed to step down to 2022 to 2025. But the president himself said, no, I don't want to. I want to rest already. I want to go back. I want to go home to Davao. Okay, if you want to do that, good. Then let's elect another president to take care of his term. Diba? Since there is no more vice president in a parliamentary system, then we can have good people that can take his shoes. Okay? So that is my answer there, Iha.
Questions, MPC? Ina Andolong.
Good morning, sir. Sir, how confident that are you about your timeline on how doable it could be, considering that there's not been much success in efforts to actually pass
Sheila?
the measures?
Sheila ba pangalan mo?
Ina Andalonzo.
Ay, Ina. Sorry, Ina. Ina, how much am I confident?
Considering that there's not been much success in efforts to pass the measures pertaining to the critical conditions that we presented.
Look at my face, Ina. Do you see that my confidence? I am very confident. But I'd like to share this confidence with people like you also. Because hope springs eternal. If we don't do this now, who will? Diba? So I am confident that we can do it. I'm 30 years old now. I intend to live for another 30 to 40 years to ride herd. Diba?
Okay. Sir, for example, your condition for political party reform, you mentioned walang lipatan. We see that very often among our politicians. And second, also, the ban on political dynasties. Our president himself has previously said that he sees nothing wrong with political dynasties.
Good.
And in fact, his children are also in office.
Exactly. That's why what I'm saying is that he will have a president now who is mouthing this. And I like what I hear from him. So let us support him. Let's push the issue. Because if we don't do that, then we're dead in the water. Diba?
I'm sorry, sir, but he said he's okay with political.
He is okay now, but you see, at the same time, he understands also that central to a good governance is totally the elimination of dynasty. However, he also understands that if we go into a parliamentary system of government is self-cleaning, okay? Self-cleaning also of political dynasty, especially when people vote only for political parties. That's why we have to reform our political parties, so that we don't have to vote only for the actors and the boxers and the celebrities, okay? No offense intended to my friends who are actors.
Okay, thank you, Ina. Questions? Joseph Morong.
Good morning po.
Joseph.
Yes, sir. I'm in front of you.
Okay, Joseph.
How are you, sir? So how are you going to input all these proposals? Are you going to report it to commission, or this is just a proposal out of the...
No, this has been worked by the 2005 Constitution in 2005 Con pa ito, during the time of GMA. And we were the people there who have been trying to push this. We will push, we will work hard, and then we will present to the 25-man committee or commission, which the president said he was going to found, diba? And eventually, hopefully, they will be able to bring it up to the right people, especially CONAS or convention. But then if we don't precipitate the debate, that's why we are presenting this in order to precipitate the debate. We have to understand the different sides. So kayo and tayo, agree or not, doesn't matter. The important thing is that we debate this. We have to clash. There has to be a clash of ideas, a thesis and antithesis. So we come up with a synthesis. Diba? The only way is to clash in order to come up with the best idea. Debate is very important here.
Sir, what's going to happen to the local government units presently existing in our system?
Until, asap na lang, after pareha pa lang yan. We have the provinces, but they have, I said, in order to be federal or an autonomous territory, they have to begin to negotiate, okay, among themselves. Saan ba territory natin? Anong wealth natin? Diba?
Yes.
So it takes time. That's why federalism
It would take a lot of time, sir, considering...
Yes, not a lot of time. Not necessarily a lot of time because they have to understand. But it is not an overnight thing.
Of course.
Diba? But for me, 2-3 years is okay. While we have a president who has the political will to ride herd on this, why not? Diba?
So in practical terms, what's going to happen to, say, for example, a congressman now and a congressman or a governor of a certain, let's take maybe Region A, Region 1. What's going to happen to their local leaders under your proposal?
Up to 2022, they're still the same.
After?
after 2022, then when they become autonomous territory, they will negotiate. They will come up with Parliament will come up with an organic act. Actually, ano yung pinag-usapan ninyo? But there are classical examples already where we still have the local government. But of course, with the governor will be already the governor of the state, hindi na yung governor ng provinces. Yun importante. Like in the United States, there are 50 states, we have 50 governors. Di ba? So, the governor will be the supreme in a state. This is what we want.
How do you propose to divide the country in several states?
Well, we have 11 states to be divided. We can show that. Northern Luzon, Region 1 and 2, and then we have the Central Luzon. These are suggestions, because they have to negotiate. We have Southern Tagalog, we have Bicol area, we have the Palawan as a single state, malayo sila. But we have also Mindanao, Mimaropa or Marinduque as another state, and then you have Eastern Visayas, which includes latest Samar, we have Central Visayas, Bohol, Cebu, etc., Western Visayas. And then in the Mindanao area, we have about 3 or 4. We have the Northern Mindanao, which may include Zamboanga, Cagayan de Oro, Occidental, etc. And then we have Southern Mindanao, the 3 Davao provinces, plus Cumbal, and we have the ARMM. Okay?
And then this federal states will elect the members, their own representatives to the parliament, yes?
Yes.
Who gets to run in these federal states?
From the state. They will elect somebody to sit down in the parliament.
That will basically follow our present context, correct?
Yes.
So do you think you're politically mature for this?
Well, at the maturity, unless you try it, you cannot be mature. Di ba? Para lang ang bata eh. If you do not let him go through the process, hindi magiging mature yan. Forever baby yan. See?
My question, sir, is more on representation.
No, the representation is basically the same. Based on population. Okay?
Yes.
Based on population. So let's say in Davao, assuming we have an autonomous state of Davao, so we have maybe about 20 districts. Okay? So yung the district congressmen will no longer be congressmen, but will be called MPs. Member of Parliament. And maganda pa dyan is that we have what we call a proportional representation in Parliament. You have 70% of the elected Parliament, but 30% of that should be what we call a party list. Hindi yung kagaya nating party list ngayon. Proportional representation. Let's say, for example, my party, CDP, will win 90% of the total votes. Then I have 90% of my lists in the party list. Those party lists will be people who may be unknown, but very good. Because pinili yun ng partido. Okay? Masking pobre sila, bright sila, they will be in the party list. Okay? So that's proportional representation. It happens in a lot of countries. Eh?
But will we not have the same dog with a different color?
No, we have a different dog and a different color.
Sir, just one last point. You mentioned that the executive and legislative power will be combined, no?
Fused. Will be fused.
Yes. What happens to the judicial branch?
No, it's still branch. There. The judicial branch interprets the law. But now, it's easier. Wala nang sulpakan yan eh. Because the executive and the legislative, the executives are cabinets who are members of parliament. See? And it's very, very, 10 out of the best countries in the world are parliamentary federal, except United States, which is federal presidential. Okay? The 10 worst countries in the world are presidential unitary. Among those are basically, nakakahiya nga eh. Among those are South Sudan, Iraq, Sudan, Somalia, and North Korea. So, some of them are Somalia, North Korea, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Angola. So these are the the failures, the presidential unitary. See? But the good ones, the good ones are practically Norway, Switzerland, Denmark, New Zealand, Sweden, Canada. These are parliamentary federal. Okay? So because federal, it gives the state the chance to develop themselves as low as possible because of subsidiarity yan, as low as possible to the people that you serve. So yon, Joseph.
All right, sir. Thank you for your time.
But remember, this is a different dog, a different color. See?
Okay, MPC, questions? Maricel Halili, TV5.
Maricel.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Sir, just a quick clarification. You mentioned earlier that if this kind of federalism will push through, the term of the president will only be 5 years, and the prime minister, there will be no term limit?
Yes, no term limits.
What's the wisdom behind
They will
this,
be
sir?
kicked out because question of no confidence. So you don't have to go through impeachment. No confidence lang. Alis na yan. Di ba? Mas maganda yung ganon. Prime Minister siya, 5 years siya. Then, kung walang no confidence, then he will continue. Continue good. Kung mga bugoy yan sila, kick out.
And who will decide, sir, kung bugoy yung...
The parliament. And remember, the parliament now is directly the representative now of different types of
But isn't it dangerous, sir, for a government official to have no term limit considering na panong...
Kung may term limits, sunong-sunong tatakbo after that. Ang kanyang asawa, ang kanyang kerida, ang kanyang anak, ang kanyang... Di ba? This is because of term limits. I-term limit mo yan. After 3 years, sa atin ngayon. So after 6 years, sino tatakbo? Ang kanyang asawa. Sunod, ang kanyang girlfriend. Sunod, ang kanyang anak. You see, these are because of what happened to term limits. That is the effect of term limits. Kung hindi if you don't think things through, di ba?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, MPC.
Did I answer you, Maricel? Huh? Thank you very
Sir,
much.
allow me may online question. Allow me to read
Yes.
this, sir. How do you reconcile President Duterte's wish of a directly elected president, prime minister, vis-a-vis one nominated by parliament?
We are trying to argue against that. We will tell the President, mali yung universal election. So that's why we are telling them, if you have a presidential universal election, you give aperture for the oligarchy to put their dirty little fingers there. Because, to create a president, to vote a president, you need billions. Not only that, you perpetuate the concept of patronage. And patronage politics in the Philippines is the worst thing that can happen. That's why we have all of this problem because of patronage politics. It's time that we have to do away with that. And we tell the president that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much also.
MPC, okay, thank you, Mr. Lito Manico Lorenzana, President, Centrist Democracy Political Institute.
Thank you very much also.
Thank you, sir. Can we have Assistant Secretary Chris Ablan?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenzana, for that very informative and educational discussion on a proposal for federalism. The Office of the Presidential Spokesperson would just like to explain that the purpose behind this is to present and push the envelope, push the debate, as Mr. Lorenzana mentioned, on changing our form of government. And the CDP is just one of many proponents with regard to federalism and changing the Constitution. And the OPS will continue to provide, in the interest of transparency, different proposals on changing the Constitution. All right, moving on. Reporting on in Mindanao. Today is day 115 or day 115. And the data as of 7 p.m. September 13, yesterday, Number of enemies killed is 668, an increase of 2 casualties. Civilians killed is still at 47. Firearms recovered is 685, no change. Unexploded ordnance recovered, or UXO, is 26. Civilians rescued is 1,728. Buildings cleared, 10. And as of yesterday, it's up 16. Total killed in action is 147. As of 3 p.m. yesterday, here's the status of cash donations. For the Marawi AFP Casualty Fund, we have 15,343,798 pesos and 23 centavos, while for the Marawi Internally Displaced Persons, or IDPs, we have 992,840 pesos and 21 centavos. Moving on to some government announcements. The Department of Finance announced that a 1 billion parametric insurance pilot project for 25 disaster-prone provinces is already in place. The premium payments financed through the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund will be categorized by disaster-specific and province-specific areas. 500 million will be allocated to disaster-specific premiums, wherein 79.2% will be given to typhoon-related disasters and 20.8% for earthquake-related disasters. The other 500 million will be allocated to province-specific premiums and will be split equally amongst the 25 provinces at 20 million each. Next, we are pleased to announce that investor confidence to the President and his administration continues to be upbeat as foreign direct investments, or FDIs, grew by 182.7% to $674 million in June 2017, up from $238 million from the same month in 2016. This latest Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas figure shows that our growth momentum is on track, and we expect this would be sustained further by public infrastructure spending, consistent with the Duterte's administration target of spending 5.3% of GDP this year for infrastructure. So those are our announcements for this morning. Rocky?
Yes, MPC questions? Laila Salaveria.
Good morning, sir.
Hi, Laila. Good morning.
Sir, does the palace share the view that heads of government agencies that don't share the president's policies or oppose his war on drugs should resign?
I think you're talking about the statements made by the legislature. As far as Malacañang is concerned, we respect the different opinions, beliefs of the different heads of agencies. And the statements that you heard comes from the other branch, the legislative branch.
So are you saying that the palace doesn't expect the heads of constitutional bodies to just echo what the president is saying?
They are appointed by both the president and the previous president, and the palace respects the opinions of the different heads of agencies, including constitutional commissions.
Sir, last na lang. How does the palace take it when they express a contrary view to that of the president? Of course, anyone in the same position would feel a little slighted if the opinions differ. So that's very natural for every human being. But the official policy is they're appointed for a fixed term, respect the fixed term. They have their own opinions. This is a free country, and so we respect the opinions of the different heads of agencies. Thank you.
Questions? MPC? No more? Are we done? Maricel, you have questions? So, Ase Cablan, we have question from Tina Mendez. Update lang daw po about alleged violations ni ASEC MOCA.
All right, as already discussed by Secretary Andanar and spokesman Abella,
The alleged violations is already submitted for investigation with our PCOO's legal office since ASEC Mocha is an Assistant Secretary of PCOO. There are procedures, admin procedures, and it's still ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, MPC. Thank you, Assistant Secretary ASEC Ablan, and thank you, Mr. Lorenzana. Thank you, MPC. Back to our main studio sa Radyo Pilipinas and PTV.
Thank you.